The American Story, The Beginnings, by David Barton and Tim Barton, as read by Karl Hirsch. The American Story highlights some of the interesting moments and people that reveal God's providence in America. We have a fascinating history that must be remembered and passed on to future generations. Section 4, The American Founding and the Federal Era. Chapters 20 and 21, The American Courts, as well as Christianity Produces Religious Freedom. The Christian influence so visible throughout the executive and legislative branches was also apparent in the judicial branch. For example, in the unanimous decision in 1844, the U.S. Supreme Court affirmed that America was a, quote, Christian country, end quote. Then in 1892, the Supreme Court, after pointing to several dozen American governmental documents from across the centuries, delivered a unanimous ruling declaring, no purpose of action against religion can be imputed to any legislation, state or national, because this is a religious people. This is a Christian nation. In 1931, the Supreme Court reaffirmed the same message for a third time. We are a Christian people, according to one another the equal right of religious freedom and acknowledging with reverence the duty of obedience to the will of God. These Christian country, Christian nation, Christian people declarations were subsequently cited by numerous federal courts for decades, well into the modern era. And because the Supreme Court viewed America as a biblical nation, it is not surprising that it regularly invoked Christian principles as the basis of its rulings on marriage, citizenship, foreign affairs, domestic treaties, and other issues. Yet, ironically, if someone today states that America is, or even was, a Christian nation, that person usually will be mocked and viciously criticized by secularists and progressives. Of course, it makes a huge difference how someone defines Christian nation. Today's critics wrongly portray a Christian nation as something coercive and elusive, a country that rejects those who are not Christians, oppresses people of different religions by restricting their opportunities, and requires them to be Christians to have civil rights. In short, they claim that being a Christian nation means being a theocracy. The problem with this approach is that our predecessors never took Christian nation to mean theocracy. For instance, U.S. Supreme Court Justice David Brewer, author of the unanimous 1892 This is a Christian Nation Supreme Court decision, offered a definition that would have been accepted by those who came before him and many who came after him, except for many modern critics who redefine the phrase. He wrote, Christianity was a principle because of the settlements on these western shores, the New World. It has been identified with the growth and development of those settlements into the United States of America, and has so largely shaped and molded it that today, of all the nations in the world, it, America, is the most justly called a Christian nation. So America is a Christian nation because the principles of the Bible shaped its values, culture, and institutions. Brewer spent significant time explaining what a Christian nation is not, which, interestingly, is exactly what critics today wrongly claim that it is. In what sense can it, America, be called a Christian nation? Not in the sense that Christianity is the established religion, or that the people are in any manner compelled to support it. On the contrary, The Constitution specifically provides that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Neither is it Christian in the sense that all its citizens are either in fact or name Christians. On the contrary, all religions have free scope within our borders. Numbers of our people profess other religions, and many reject all. Nor is it Christian in the sense that a profession of Christianity is a condition of holding office, or otherwise engaging in public service, or essential to recognition either politically or socially. In fact, the government as a legal organization is independent of all religions. Nevertheless, we constantly speak of this republic as a Christian nation. In fact, as the leading Christian nation of the world. It is important to emphasize that Brewer and the other justices were not devising a new definition. They were restating what had long been held by the founders and early jurists, civic leaders, and historians. Following this decision, Brewer gave a series of popular lectures addressing the decision and how the court reached its conclusion. In 1905, his lectures were published in a book in which he observed that, quote, "The calling of this republic a Christian nation is not a mere pretense, but a recognition of an historical, legal, and social truth." Historical, legal, and social truth, the same categories already presented in this work. The evidence in these three areas was so abundant that state courts were just as forthright in their declarations on this subject as the federal courts had been. For example, Illinois Supreme Court, 1883. Our laws and institutions must necessarily be based upon and embody the teachings of the Redeemer of mankind. It is impossible that it should be otherwise. And in this sense, and to this extent, our civilization and institutions are emphatically Christian. Kentucky Court of Appeals, 1945. Democracy is the outgrowth of Christianity. Although the constitutional decree of freedom of religion and worship embraces any faith, ours is a Christian nation. Mississippi Supreme Court, 1950. Our great country is denominated a Christian nation. We imprint "In God We Trust" on our currency. Our state has even sometimes been referred to by cynics as being in the Bible Belt. It cannot be denied that much of the legislative philosophy of this state and nation has been inspired by the Golden Rule and the Sermon on the Mount and other portions of the Holy Scriptures. Oklahoma Supreme Court in 1959. It is well settled and understood that ours is a Christian nation, holding the Almighty God in dutiful reverence. It is so noted in our Declaration of Independence and in the Constitution of every state in the Union. Since George Washington's first presidential proclamation of Thanksgiving Day, each such annual proclamation reiterates the principles that we are such a Christian nation. At public expenditure, we engrave our coins, "In God We Trust," and print the same on currency. Our national motto, adopted by joint resolution of Congress, is "In God We Trust." Our national anthem closes with these words, "In God is our trust." We consider the language used in our Declaration of Independence and in our National Constitution and in our Constitution of Oklahoma, wherein those documents recognize the existence of God and that we are a Christian nation and a Christian state. Numerous other courts made similarly succinct pronouncements. Whether America is currently behaving as a Christian nation is a different discussion. But it is historically irrefutable that for centuries, including under the U.S. Constitution, America definitely was considered a Christian nation. What Justice Brewer and the other jurists recognized is that, historically, biblical Christianity, as applied in America, was radically different from the European Christian traditions at the time. In America, the choice of one's own religious faith, or lack thereof, was voluntary, reflecting the most wholesome free market principles of individual choice. This, of course, is the standard God Himself established, using this non-coercive approach as His modus operandi from the very beginning. God placed Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden and told them what they should not do, but then allowed them the choice of what they would do. There was neither force, pressure, nor coercion applied to their decision. It was entirely their own voluntary choice. They chose poorly, and therefore had to live with the consequences. God could have prevented them from choosing wrongly by removing free will, but He did not. Israel's national leaders followed the same pattern, including Moses in Deuteronomy 30:19, Joshua 24:15, and the prophet Elijah, 1 Kings 18:21. In fact, with Joshua, before he led the Israelites into the Promised Land, he specifically offered the people the option of serving the gods of Egypt, the land in which they had come, the gods of Canaan, the land into which they were entering, or the Lord God of the Bible. The people had a choice. Not every decision was right, but it was theirs to make, and they would live with the consequences. Examples following the same voluntary, non-coercive pattern fill the New Testament. Jesus Himself established the precedent, stating, "Whoever will, follow me." Luke 9:23. It was a voluntary individual choice of whether or not to follow Him. This position was repeated by the Apostle Peter in Acts 2:21 and echoed by the Apostle Paul, Romans 10:13, as well as others after them. Biblical Christianity was always for whoever will, a voluntary choice for every person. With these clear precedents, it is not surprising that American Christian leaders also implemented this same free market approach. As a result, from America's earliest years, non-Christians were welcome in America. This was not because the early Christian colonists were indifferent to Christianity or believed all religions equal, for most held an opposite position on both points. As the legislature of New York attested in 1838, With us it is wisely ordered that no one religion shall be established by law, but that all persons shall be left free in their choice in their mode of worship. Still, this is a Christian nation. 99 hundredths, if not a larger portion of our whole population, believe the general doctrines of the Christian religion. Our government depends for its very being on the virtue of the people, on that virtue which has its foundation in the morality of the Christian religion. And that religion is common and prevailing faith of the people. American Christians were faithful and eager to tell others about the Christian faith. Yet, based on biblical teachings, they believed that individuals must make their own voluntary choices about their personal faith, and then live with the results, even if that choice meant the difference between heaven and hell. Several founders openly praised this voluntary aspect of Christianity in America. The Reverend Ezra Stiles, a Christian theologian and president of Yale, accurately summed up America's policy in this area. Religious liberty is peculiarly friendly to fair and generous disquisition, that's inquiry and questioning. Here, in America, deism will have its full chance, nor need libertines, those opposed to biblical morality, to complain of being overcome by any weapons, but the gentle, the powerful ones of argument and truth. Revelation, the Bible, will be found to stand the test to the 10,000th examination. Because of this biblical free market approach, those from differing faiths recognized and applauded the remarkable range of freedoms they found extended to them in Christian America. And even today, many of those from other faiths still directly associate their equal opportunities with America's Christianity. The biblical Christianity practiced by the early colonists and founding fathers had a powerful influence in directing the early course of the American story. Without true biblical Christianity, there never would have been the U.S. Constitution that has caused America to become the longest ongoing constitutional republic in the history of the world. Our founders were the first civil leaders to, as the Declaration of Independence announced, hold these truths and establish a nation upon them. As Noah Webster, a key individual in the ratification of the Constitution and the, quote, father of the American dictionary, end quote, accurately affirmed, the religion which has introduced civil liberty is the religion of Christ and his apostles, which enjoins humility, piety, and benevolence, which acknowledges in every person a brother or a sister and a citizen with equal rights. This is genuine Christianity, and to this we owe our free constitutions of government.